Good afternoon, everyone. I'm June Rawl, the Director for Florida IPDAE. Today's webinar is an introduction to IPDAE's matrix suite for ABE and GED. We know that the matrices are no new thing for many of you, but we wanted to do a quick review. We talk a lot about the critical factors that impact our NRS data, and today we just wanted to relook at the matrices because this is such an essential instrument that can really move our data. Keep in mind that this matrix suite keeps changing as we keep adding new resources to the matrices. So let's get started. Today's facilitator is no stranger to any of us. It's Mr. Ronald Cruz from Hillsborough County Public Schools, our main lead IPDAE trainer. So we welcome Ron and thank him for his time. Let's just go over a few housekeeping rules before we begin. As you know, your microphones are muted. You are in listen-only mode. We want you to ask questions. You can go ahead and type them in the Q&A option that is on your screen. Please note that all the documents that are presented today have already been loaded on the IPDAE website, and you can access them there. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, Ron, and let's get started with the matrices.
Thank you for the introduction, June. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to today's webinar. The purpose of this webinar is just to go over, for everybody that did not get an opportunity to attend the ACE conference, to attend the summer symposium for statewide leaders and district administrators. We want to give an opportunity for all teachers to get the information and get a more structured presentation of what are all these beautiful and fantastic things popping up on the IPDAE website. So, and we have developed so many resources already that, you know, from the matrix that we initially conceptualized early last year, it has blown into a complete suite of resources. So before I begin talking about those things, I just want to quickly review why we're having to do this. So what led to the development of the matrix? Well, first of all, the rollout of the college and career readiness standards and the new curriculum frameworks for adult basic education just was a big shocker to all of us that we need somewhat of a guide to help us accomplish all of the tasks that is included on those documents. We want to make sure that teachers are implementing the college and career readiness standards and the Florida Department of Education curriculum frameworks for adult basic education for reading, mathematics, and language, that everybody is doing that and implementing those in fidelity. So what we did was to come up with the math matrix. We started off with the math matrix and all of that, but really it stems out of helping teachers so that you can help your students be the best they can be, you know, so that they can demonstrate gains, you know, when they take the any standardized assessment, where it be TABE 11 and 12, and then or CASA schools. One more thing that I wanted to reiterate is that the development of these new assessments, such as the TABE 11 and 12 and the CASA's reading and math goals, also were the key drivers for the development of the matrix and all of the other information and resources that we are pushing out today. So one of the things I want to go over is, again, goes along with that, why are we doing this? Why is IPDAE creating and developing all of these materials and resources for educators? Well, let's look at our data. So what I'm showing you is the 1819 statewide performance data for ESL. Okay, so So this is for English as a second language, and for us in Florida, we always refer them to ESOL. So for all of our ESOL students statewide, when we compile the measurable skills gains for all ESL students from levels 1 to level 6, and then arranged them and separated them by level, here are the percentage of measurable gains attained by each group. So as you can see, looking at this chart, at ESL level 1, at a state target of, I think this has already changed. I think the state target of 41 now, it's for the current year that we are. But when we were presenting this to last year to the administrator, it was at 40, but now we are at 41. Regardless, within the 1% range difference, ESL level 1 has not, is the only level that has surpassed the state target. When we look at the other levels of ESL, starting from ESL level 2 all the way to ESL level 6, the measurable skills gain percentage is significantly lower than the state target, and may it be 40% or 41%. Now you go into level 3, and as you go higher into the levels of ESL, what happens is, or what you can see, is that the performance decreases even more as you go into the higher levels. And that's just understood, that is, but for it to be so far below the state target kind of raises an alarm to all of us, right? Like, okay, so we need to kind of revisit what we're doing and see what can we do to help teachers and administrators move their data and achieve the state target. The same trend happens on the ABE level. They follow the same kind of like pattern, same trend pretty much for ABE. So let's look at the overall percentage. Let's just combine all the levels together. So let's look at the state target for ABE is 41%. This is the current target for this academic year. And then for the state target for ESL is 43%, okay? So if you look at the total percentage of measurable gains for ABE, we are only at an average of 34%. That is a deficit of 9. I think it's 9 because this was based off of the 40% initially. So this is 9% difference from our goal. And with regards to ESL, okay, there's a the ESL total is 28%, and that is a deficit of 14% from the 43% state target. So what this shows is that throughout the state overall, all of the ABE students and all of the ESL students we're not hitting the mark. We're not producing the results that we're supposed to produce. So what we're doing on the IPDAE side is trying to develop materials and resources that will help you move the needle in terms of the data. So that we conceived the matrix suite of resources. Another thing that's also impacting pretty much at a greater extent, impacting the performance or the measurable skills gain is the rate of us post-testing. So there is a state target of 70% post-test rate for all students enrolled in ABE and ESL. And look at the current percentage post-testing percentage rate for individually for ABE and ESL respectively. We are at negative 29% difference for ABE and negative 18% difference for ESL. And you kind of average that both ABE and ESL together, we're at 47%, which still puts us below by 24% difference from the state target. So this is kind of like a little bit of an alarm, you know, And we want to make sure that, we all of the necessary tools to help you move this data, because we're all in this together as an entire state. All right, so hence we developed the matrix suite. Now, as I present all of the components of the matrix suite, we're going to do an approach in the presentation mode. And what we're going to, instead of presenting to you all of the components of the suite one by one and breaking it down, we're going to present it to you in such a way that it aligns with a certain strategy for leveraging the resources of the matrix into moving your data. So what we're going to do is we're going to recommend kind of like a basic strategy to kind of help you, as you work with your student within your classroom. You can implement this strategy within your own classroom, or you can implement this strategy that we're going to present to you within your organization. Okay, so this process strategy is very basic. It's made up of 3 steps. So the first step is know your instructional content and target that instructional content. So knowing what we're supposed to teach, what's going to be on the assessment, what's contained in the college and career readiness standards, the curriculum frameworks, and then also what's going to be assessed on the test, okay? Whether it be TABE 11 and 12 or CASAS reading and math goals. Once you've accomplished that step, now you're ready to move on to the second step. The second step is monitoring your progress. So of course, all of our students come to us with a pre-test information or a baseline data of where to start, their initial educational functioning level, right? So as they start that participation in our program, once we get that information, we tie that up with instructional content that we have to teach, and then we monitor their progress towards those standards. And as we monitor those, their performance against the standards, depending on whether they have met the standard, we can, or failed to meet the standard, we either intervene for them to provide remediation and allow the student to meet the target, or if they have met the target, how do we sustain that? How do we continually challenge the student so that they can move on to the next level? And then as we do this on an individual student basis, on a class by class basis, as we apply this approach, the effect will amplify of organization, and we're kind of have a kind of like a uniform way of targeting and moving our data. So I'm going to go over, and now with this process strategy that I presented to you, I'm going to show you how the matrix suite of resources fits in this process strategy. Okay, and keep in mind, your own organization may have already devised a plan on how to improve your data or move your data or meet the state goals or state targets. I'm sure, and I'm quite sure, monitoring progress, intervention and remediation, and the curriculum frameworks and the college and career readiness standards are already. What we're showing you is a more super basic approach that you can apply, at a granular level, even at your classroom, in your classroom with individual students, small groups of students, or for your entire class. So what I'm going to go over next is explain to you how the matrix suite of resources, all of the resource components of the matrix suite, how do they fit in and how do they help you accomplish your benchmarks within this strategy. So we started off with the math matrix, because math was one of the most problematic subject areas of all the 3 subject areas in adult basic ed. So that's usually the most problematic, the least performing of all. So we started off with that. And as IPDAE gained additional funding and resources from the Department of Education, we were able to develop additional matrices And these are core matrices such as the reading curriculum matrix, the language curriculum matrix, the GED curriculum matrix. We even created other versions and layers of matrices, okay? And then we also developed resource activities to go along with each one. And on monitoring your students' progress, we also develop individualized student plans to go along with all of this. So it's a complete set of resources and materials that align with this basic process strategy to move your data. So what we're going to do is we're going to piece it all out. All of these matrices, these resources, are contained already in the IPDAE website. So that's what I'm going to go over as we go along with this webinar, and how you can download these individual ones. So the first one I'm going to show you is how you can download the core matrices, okay? So let's go, and I'm going to go ahead and switch off of the slide and go to my browser, and you can use any browser. So when you go into floridaipdae.org, www.floridaipdae.org, you're going to see this landing page. There is a special home for the matrix, or for all of the matrix resources within the IPDAE website. So if you're looking at the landing page, you just slightly scroll down a little bit, and on the bottom right corner, somewhere in this area, it's the in the know area. You'll see this section called the online lookup tool, or go to adult education curriculum matrix. Either one of these links will work. So I'm going to go and click on to the go to the AE curriculum matrix link. So now it's going to bring you to the matrix, the electronic matrix landing page. So when you see this landing page, right across, you can see clearly all of the core matrices posted. So you've got the math matrix, followed by the reading matrix, followed by the language arts matrix, and then followed by the math matrix. So, I mean, the GED math, I'm sorry. So if you're wanting to download one right away, you can either click the name of the matrix or the download now. They both work the same way. So I'm going to demonstrate that to you right now. So if you click on that, you'll be able to pull out the low profile version of the matrix. You see there, you've got the consistency in the color coding on the left, and then you have all of your, all of your matrix cells and the standards and benchmarks that you have to accomplish in the ABE curriculum, starting from level 1 all the way to levels 5 and 6. Okay, so then this version, you can download it right here at the upper right corner. You can download it, okay, or you can print it right away. What we suggest is to use an 11 by 17 piece of paper, if you have that. If not, you can always fit it in onto a regular letter size paper. But keep in mind that once it's in an electronic version, let's just say you click on download and you just save it somewhere in your documents, okay? And then once you save it, you're going to be able to open it up as a PDF version. So now hold on, let me just do that again. No, it's not working right now. So let's going to go into my documents, open it up as a PDF. There you go. And in PDF, you can do a lot of things. You can increase the size, take snippets of sections of a particular matrix, and just print that, because you might not need all the levels. Maybe you have only a group of level 1 and 2. So therefore, you can reduce the size and only print that section of the matrix. Like if, for example, if you're only having level 1 and 2 students, so then you only need the first 5 domains. So therefore, you can reduce to this particular size and then snip it that way. If not, you can print the whole thing as well. You can also zoom in and out. You can keep it in electronic format and then zoom in and out of each of the domains. That one is will work well as well. Okay. So I'm going to go over the other features of within this landing page of the matrix suite in a little bit. So I'm going to come back to this section and then just going to put a pin on it, and then we're going to resume back to our presentation. Okay, so that's kind of like your gift from IPDAE. All right, so let's start with our first strategy. So our first strategy, of course, is know and target your instructional content, right? So where do we get this information? We get this from the College and Career Readiness Standards. We aligned it with the Florida Department of Education. But who has the time to flip through several pages, 100 pages of the College and Career Readiness Standards, 34 pages of the curriculum frameworks, we want something that you can blow up into a poster, right? So that's why we created the matrix, a more summarized chunk version of all of the instructional targets that you need to achieve. All right, so let's start off with the core matrices again. So the core matrices is composed of the matrix for mathematics. Okay, it summarizes that. It's a little, it's in its format. It's very intuitive. It graduates from basic math skills to more high level, more complex math skills. It gives the teacher and the student a big picture of what they have to accomplish within ABE. It's organized by strand, or it's organized by domains. So you can really hone in as to what unit, what activity, what big ideas in math you're trying to target. And it's really a good tool for differentiating and scaffolding instruction. It's very useful for planning and collaboration. You can use it as you can use the matrix as a resource guide. You can use it as a pacing guide. You can use it as a for learning targets or for addressing areas of concern for your students. So, and we're going to dive a little bit more with that as we move on with this webinar. Another core matrix are the reading and the language arts matrix. Keep in mind that under the language matrix, it's composed of two sub-matrices. One is just the language matrix, which deals with conventions of standard English, and the other one is the writing matrix. In addition to the core matrices, we developed the GED math matrix. So it's derived directly from the performance level descriptors that's released by GED Testing Service. We kind of summarize it, formatted it for you according to the domains that they fall under and what's assessed at every level of GED. Okay, so really cool tool. So we kind of created a GED version of the math matrix for ABE. And then we created other versions as well. First version is the crosswalk to GED. One of the basic things that we always encounter in the field is that why is it that, what can you show me a connection between adult basic education and GED? Or show me the connection or how the things I'm teaching to levels 5 and 6 ABE students, how is that helping them towards the GED? What components of the TABE 11 and 12 or CASA's reading and math goals are helping and building towards certain skills and domains in GED? Well, with that said, we developed a crosswalk to the GED matrix. We identified specifically major ideas, big ideas that point towards quantitative problem solving and then others that are pointing towards algebraic problem solving. We broke them down according to domains as to which domains linger throughout and builds or serves as a building block for GED level topics and GED level skills. So hopefully you guys take advantage of the crosswalk. This is especially useful if you're teaching higher levels of ABE, or even if you're teaching to the lowest level ABE, lowest level GED prep students. That kind of gives them the perspective on how what they've learned in the past is helping them achieve, their GED. Okay. All right. So we're going to move on to other versions of the matrix. So we also created somewhat of a, because the previous slide of the GED PLD matrix, it's very wordy and it looks very intimidating for the students. So what we created is a simplified version where we chunked all of the GED performance level descriptors according to topic. And so that the students, based on how many objectives or how many items within that topic are included in the performance level descriptors, we kind of grouped them together and then wrote out the name or the summary topic that they all fall under. And then, of course, certain topics, certain skills will have more objectives than others. So what you can see here, as you see certain topics such as applications of ratios and proportions, that's a combination of several objectives into one. And as they get bigger, the larger fonts or the topics that occupy large areas of the matrix means that there are more than one objectives that occupy those. So the students can immediately look on the onset, or even the teacher can kind of scan and look at what are the major ideas, what are the major skills that are assessed in the GED. Okay. Now let's look at another component that will help you, again, target instructional content. The newest resource that we've added on into the Matrix suite are the resource activities. The resource activities are, and I have an example right here in front of you. You're looking at it on the left side. It's a piece of document, it's between 2 to 7 page documents. And they always target one specific cell of the matrix. And in this case, the one that you're looking at, it's targeting NRS level 1, equality and addition and subtraction. So as you can see, there is some concepts. There's going to be some review of a concept. We'll introduce, skip counting and operations with whole numbers, specifically addition and subtraction. We use a lot of visuals and manipulatives in here in order to allow the students to visualize and see what's happening with numbers as you add and subtract. Just add that layer of visual for, add that layer of support for visual learners to be able to see abstract concepts of addition and subtraction. Highlights of this resource activity is definitely aligned to the college and career readiness standards. One thing that we did when we created these resource activities is that we included the actual standards into the resource activity. So you can see at the top portion or towards the title of the resource activity, you see the title followed by what content area, whether it's mathematics, reading, or language. And then it tells you what domain in the matrix can you find this skill. And then also we included the college and the career readiness standards that align with this particular resource activity. So we're making sure that we're aligning to these college and career readiness standards so that we are ensuring fidelity, because then they use those standards to develop the TABE test, the CASAS reading goals, and also, to create those standardized assessments. So we want to make sure that what we're developing for you that you can use in your classroom to target content aligns directly to what's assessed. we made sure that that including the assessment part, so there is an assessment part called practice section. The practice session is also aligned to standardized assessment, meaning it's more in the format of a word problem, which frequently occurs in a standardized test. We also included items that can be done on a technology enhanced item, just like the question number 3 you see in front of you. There's like where drag and drop, but in this case, since it's in paper mode, students will have to write out or draw what is the solution or the equality based on the problem that's presented. And as you can see on question number 4, it's kind of like, it's not kind of, it is a gridded response type question. So because they will also encounter, students will also encounter gridded response. So we want to make sure that students are able to practice not only solving word problems in multiple choice, but also working with technology enhanced items and also gridded type responses. So we tried our best to make sure that the practice activities that we include in the resource activity aligns to the standardized test, that whatever test you are going to give your students towards the end or after so many hours. We also included a lot of research base when we are in developing these resource activities. We want to make sure that there's lots of opportunity for research-based classroom instructional strategies, such as cooperative learning, hands-on learning, experimental learning, those research-proven effective strategies that so that you're also hitting those, you know, those marks, making sure that how you present your material aligns to best practices and research base. We develop the content full blown. We talk about more, it's more of in a narrative format. When you're reading the resource activity, it seems like you're reading a story or you're reading a progression of something being solved. So it's always, we try our best to make sure that you know, if it can be used independently by a student if they decide, okay, I'm lagging in this particular concept or skill, I need to do my self-review. All the teacher have to do is direct them to the specific resource activity that targets those skills that they're lagging on, and then they can individually or independently accomplish and go through these resource activities. We want to make sure that every resource activity has a visual or graphic element, because that's so important, because on the TABE and the CASAS tests, they have a lot of graphics. They want to make sure that students are able to understand graphs, that students are able to understand diagrams or charts and tables. So you will see when you download these resource activities, you'll see that those types of examples are being used in developing the content of each resource activity. We really emphasize the use of hands-on approach, because to us, this is one of those instructional strategies that's really super important, especially for adults, kinesthetic learners. So we included there certain recommendations as to what manipulatives we use to illustrate the items in the resource activity, or other manipulatives that you can substitute or alternatively use when going over certain resource activities. We really emphasize vocabulary in these resource activities because we know several of our adult basic education students are second language learners. So we want to make sure that we provide sufficient and ample vocabulary practice and exercise. So in these resource activities, not only are we asking questions to promote, you know, thinking about vocabulary or emphasize vocabulary words in each component of the matrix, but we also want to make sure that it is emphasized, it's highlighted, and it's bolded in there so that the teacher can really hone in and zoom in into particular vocabulary words when tackling different contents in mathematics. We also gave opportunity for students and teachers to use and spend time reflecting on what they learned. So you're going to notice in several of the resource activities, there's reflective prompts where it allows the student to pause and think about what they just read, or think about what you guys discussed in class, and allow them to write something. So it's kind of like tying in mathematics and language together, you know, integrating the two subject areas together at the same time, and making sure that the students kind of look back and absorb what they've learned so far. So allowing the student to reflect. And these reflection prompts do not require a particular correct response. Some of them is just asking the student to explore or draw something. Later on, they will use their reflections and verify their reflections against you know, certain mathematical facts or rules that they're going to encounter later on in the resource activity. So it's really structured very smoothly, allows some good pauses. I would say that when you see a reflected prompt on a resource activity, that's always a good stopping point in the resource activities, because sometimes there are some resource activities that go as many as 7 to 8 pages long, and you're not going to be able to accomplish, depending on the level of your students, all of the content that is included in the resource activity all in one day. So we added there the reflective prompts, kind of like a gentle reminder. Hey, after this reflective prompt would be a good pausing time for you to move on to other subject areas, or pause for the next class meeting. Really, really important, that's something that we're really proud of, is that these resource activities were developed by Florida practitioners, Florida teachers. Some of these are even written by myself. So again, we welcome a lot of feedback from you. If you notice anything about the resource activity, please let us know. You can email IPDAE directly, and I'm going to show you I'll give you my email address towards the end of this presentation, so that you can contact me if you've got any questions about the matrix resources. What I really like about the resource activity is the simplicity. It's not a complete lesson. So don't get us wrong. These are not lesson plans, but they already have all of the major components for you to build a lesson around these resources. Chunk it as you may, split it up in multiple days, or tackle them all in one day. It really doesn't matter. We try to keep it as simple as possible so that you can use it in many, many ways. You can use it for your class of instruction. You can use it as practice exercises for your students. You can give this as homework to reinforce what you taught for the day. It's a lot of things that you can do with it. So we didn't design it as a lesson plan, because lesson plans are for teachers. And what if you wanted to do, you know, give it as an assignment for your students? Well, they don't need all of those notes and all those information there for teachers for your students to accomplish. They're just going to get lost. So we try to keep it as simple as possible so that you guys can really hone in on the content itself. All right. So let me take a moment to show you how to download these magnificent resources. All right, so I'm going back to this landing page of the electronic matrices, and we're going to use the online lookup tool to kind of locate a particular resource activity that we need. So let's just say, okay, let's start exploring the math section, and I'm going to look at some of the reading, which I'm very, very excited to announce to you. So let's first talk about the math. So let's say, for example, we go into the math matrix, click on the math curriculum matrix, and then it's going to ask you to select what particular domain are you looking for. So you can say, okay, well, let me look into geometry. All right. And then once you selected the domain, it's going to ask you what level are your students, you know, what level of student or content are you trying to present, or are you trying to explore? So then it's going to ask, okay, well, let me go to level 3 geometry, and it's going to show you all of the available resource activities within that level, within that domain. And then from the lister, you can go down the list and say, okay, well, let me see, classify two-dimensional figures into categories based on properties. That's one of the standards that I need to address So let me click on the resource activity and bam, you have a PDF version of it. You can print it, you can save it, you can email it, you can tweet it, whatever you want to do. It's not copyrighted, meaning it is free for you to make several copies for. So you can make 30 copies, 40, 50, but please do not, burn your copy machine when you do that, but try to see and print only the ones that you think is needed or needs to be addressed. So here it is. You have several sections in here where you can see the different descriptors for different quadrilaterals, including kites and parallelograms. Talks about the different polygons and shapes. And then again, practice exercises. Practice exercises, again, could be technology enhanced. It could be more of an activity that you can do with your class as a whole. So in this case, you can see that there's many research-based strategies that we're incorporating into the development of the matrix resource activities so that you can apply as many different strategies as you can. Most importantly, we have the answer key, so you don't have to think about it, So all of the answers are in here, and for additional worksheets, additional exercises, and even links to Khan Academy to continually reinforce that particular skill, it's all included here. And if we used any images or any information from other sources, we will cite it so that you can explore those resources as well. So yes, print away. Now let's go back to my presentation. So we're going to now talk about the different components. So we try to make sure that the resource activity all are constructed consistently. So meaning will all have the same components. So first of all, there's that concept where we develop the concept. We blow up when we give you images and exercises and examples, and then it has the practice activities. That's where we use all of these standardized, parallel to standardized assessment activities that you can use with your students. The answer key, just like I said, and any other additional resources and references and credits that need to be mentioned and were used in the creation of the resource activity. So let's move on to strategy 2. Strategy 2 talks about monitoring the progress. So I'm also very excited to show you that when we're monitoring student progress, we have developed, this is kind of like derived from the Blue Apple. It's a huge project in Miami-Dade County. And we want to make sure that all of the other counties have also an opportunity to use the same concept on how they monitor their students' performance on a granular basis. So we've adopted and created our own paper version of the Blue Apple, and we call it the Individualized Student Plans. So let me go over those individualized student plans with you. So this just goes over the different, okay, let me just backtrack a little bit, okay. This is what I've shown you is just different versions of the matrix that is out there that you can also download or you may have received during one of the regional trainings from IPDAE. Got a clear version, plain version, and all appears in electronic format as well. Just like I said before, you can use the matrix as a tracking tool, whether your students have met the target, especially the areas where they show partial to no proficiency, and you can even color code it. You can color code the matrix and color the ones that are no proficiency or zero proficiency as red and partial proficiency as yellow. And then for those areas where they showed mastery or proficiency, that they are in green. And then you as a teacher can now see in a big picture what areas you need to address and help the students with. So we also created kind of like the blank matrix, so you can use your own, you can annotate your own and use it as a kind of like a resource guide. You can put in page numbers of textbook or packets that you have, worksheets numbers, activity numbers, certain activities that you do, or information that you downloaded online, and lessons that you've downloaded from the IPDAE website. You can easily annotate that into the blank matrix or right on top of it, so you know when you hit those content, those standards, that you're able to pull up these magnificent resources that you've gathered over time. You can also put in additional annotations such as websites that you want your students to go to, or any particular manipulative that works well with those standards. Now you can also use it as a pacing guide, just like I said. So you can write dates along the way to kind of map your way through the semester, or map your way through their next post-test, so that you're making sure that you're hitting those areas that they didn't show mastery the last time, so that you're able to hit those harder, and then you're able to have somewhat of a timeline as to when you can accomplish those. So this is a good reminder for you. So just the versatility of the matrix, just I can go on and with different ways. There's also several overlays that we released. There is a TABE overlays that we developed with the matrix that goes with every level of TABE, where all of the lighter shaded colors are low emphasis on the TABE tests, and then the medium highlights are the medium emphasis, and then the darker ones are your high emphasis objectives on the TABE test. And we derive these color codes and these emphasis levels from the TABE blueprints released by DRC. So this is also available and is out there and downloadable for you to use in your classroom. Also, we also released a TABE overlay for the crosswalk for those students that are taking the level A TABE test. And again, just like I said, practice activities are there. They're real life. They're standardized. They're formatted to the same format as the test. And then it is rich in graphs and illustrations, including technology enhanced capabilities that we can derive into a paper version. Now, let me go back and circle into what I mentioned earlier, that Blue Apple that we're trying to emulate into a paper version, which is the Individualized Student Plans. The Individualized Student Plans were derived again from the TABE 11 and 12 test blueprints. It's identified by test level, and the emphasis level is present as well. So there's just that legend here, whether if they're low emphasis, it's there in gray. If they're medium emphasis, they're in blue. And if they're high emphasis, they're in orange. So you maintain that level of emphasis as you're planning. The purpose of this individualized student plan is so that you can go domain by domain, specifically on the areas where they show partial proficiency or non-proficiency, and then mark those and set a target, set a goal, and then write the date as to when you have mastered those. It's kind of like a quick reminder or a checklist for both you and your students that these are the skills that you need to kind of learn, so that the students are now cognizant as to, okay, why did I not make a gain last time I post-tested? Now I know what skills I need to improve that is critical to the next level test that I will be taking. So now I have a checklist to go by, and we put back the onus on the student, and the student develops a little bit more responsibility for their own education to make sure that they're able to learn all of those areas where they show partial or no proficiency. They're grouped by standards. It's kind of like a checklist format for you to use. It's free. It's a live document. We're still working on finalizing the students' individualized plan. But the good thing about it is it's free and it's reproducible. Okay? So soon enough, we will have a section on the IPDAE website as to where you can download these TABE 11 and 12 individualized student plans. We're still in the finalization stages. So let me pause for a moment here and see if we've got any questions from the audience. I don't see any questions on my end. I want to check with June or Joseph and see if there's any questions on your end.
No, you're good, Ron.
I see no questions on the chat as well. Thank you very much. All right, moving on. So the last stage of the strategy is really, once you've identified those areas that they're lacking in proficiency, you charted a path towards targeting those areas of need and knowing your standard. The last step is really, what do you do about it, right? How do you intervene? How do you sustain your progress? And as you intervene and sustain, we are using both the individualized student plan in conjunction with the electronic matrix. So you're looking at because the electronic matrix is a single page, so you can transfer the information from the student plan into the matrix, or you can just go by with the student plan itself. But you know, I already went over how to download this. I'm just gonna skip through these slides, and just so you know, it's in your PowerPoint slides, just in case you want to review or you forgot how to get to and download your own copy, electronic copy of the matrices that you have there, or download your own copy of the resource activities that you have there with you. All right, so again, using those matrices is really important. The matrix resources is really important. So what we present to you now is a kind of like a framework, somewhat of a cycle, because we always work in a cycle in adult education, meaning we look at the test score, we instruct the students and help them with areas of need, and then we go back and say, we assess them again. And then based on that post-test, we go back to the drawing board and say, okay, what standards are now mastered or have not been mastered, and then we cycle back again to the planning and instruction stage. So this cycle, you're probably already familiar with this cycle. We do this every time. What we did with this cycle is that we added what matrix suite resources can you use at every stage of the cycle. So for example, when you're looking into at the beginning of the year, you're looking at your standards and curriculum, you're planning for your standards and curriculum, look at the matrix, use the matrix, the versions, the overlays in planning your curriculum and how you're gonna accomplish that. And then as you do your daily instruction, you can use the different versions of the matrix, the overlays, and most importantly, the resource activities that is available there. And then for assessment, you know, you can also use your resource activities as your assessment for your students. So you save that practice exercise as an informal assessment for your students to see whether, okay, have they mastered the skill or not, or do they need a little bit more, a little bit more remediation. And then you go into your reflection state as to, okay, has the student met the standard, or are we still needing more resources along the way? What we intend to do is to provide you with all of the basic tools you need. It's not exhaustive, but it's somewhere to start, you know? And what we're doing with IPDAE is we're developing more and more resources so that you guys can just go straight to the IPDAE website and download all of the resources that you need for your classroom. And then there's a lot of the things that I also want to talk about that, you know, our adult education programs are governed by WIOA, the Workforce Innovations and Opportunities Act. You know, so all of our grants, all of our adult education programs are governed there. So what we're trying to do with the Matrix Seed is to make sure that we're helping and in moving the needle towards these WIOA requirements. So first of all, initially we rolled out levels 1 through 4 of the matrix, and what we did was we added the levels 5 and 6 into the matrices to make sure that we are bridging our students towards those career technical programs that they wanted to go into. We also developed the crosswalk. The crosswalk to the GED is that main purpose, is to increase measurable skills gains so that the students that are in adult basic education are moving towards GED. And then one of the bigger projects that we're eyeing on is to develop additional overlays to the matrix to show that, okay, let's just say, okay, let's take, for example, carpentry or computer programming, or let's say licensed practical nursing. We want to make sure to create somewhat of an overlay where it highlights all of the critical, essential math, reading, and language skills in those career clusters or specific career fields. So that's there coming up for you to, I mean, just stand by, and we're working with the state to develop some additional resources and overlays to help us with these WIOA requirements. Bottom line, we're all accountable. We're all accountable for increasing enrollment, making sure that our students come to class and maintain, their attendance. Also, perform when they are post-testing to show those level gains after that, and also make sure that we are, getting those literacy completion points. With the WIOA requirements, we also need to do our due diligence in making sure that we feed our student into our career technical or post-secondary programs, and make sure that we are leading them on to a sure pathway to a career. So these are the things that, kind of like is always on our, on top of our heads, as we go through the day. But focus on the factors that will significantly impact your program. Please keep in mind that IPDAE is always right there to provide you with everything you need in this effort. So we're providing you with face-to-face workshop. We're very excited because we're starting the planning stages of our fall regional workshops. Please keep coming to the IPDAE website to participate on webinars, communities of practice, transfer of learning activities. Look and read those in electronic direct mail that you get from IPDAE, and see what's coming up, what trainings are going to be available in your area, what information and new resources are popping up on the IPDAE website. Make sure that you're tuning into those, because those are your alerts as to what is all new and what new developments we have created for you to help you in your work as teachers. There are other new and updated instructional resources there, the administrator portals, and most importantly, any updates to the electronic matrices. Just keep in mind, we're doing this because we know that in your class, your students are not just plain numbers. These are dads and moms, single parents that are trying to finish their ABE or GED in order to support their family. Or maybe that a student that wants to be in the medical field and help and serve the needy. Or maybe that immigrant that just recently relocated and rebuilding their life, or a refugee rebuilding their life here in this country, or that elderly grandfather or parent that would like to finally get their high school diploma, but they never got to. Or it could be that disabled student that was not served well in the traditional K-12 system and are now in the adult education world, and they just wanted to be able to be functional. They want to be able to do things, work, and earn for a living. These are the phases of our students that we work with every day. And we want to make sure that as you go through, the daily grind, that we are able to help you in one way or another. So please send us your feedback. We're very happy to hear from you and what else you need. So use the Q&A tab if you have any other questions and comments or feedback. And I'm going to turn it over now to June for our quick evaluation.
Ron, thank you so much. Now you're going to see a feedback slide that's going to come up on your screen. Just take an opportunity to answer those 3 short questions for us. We always like to hear from you and your feedback. So I'm going to pause for 40 seconds for you to fill this out, and then I'll give you some closing comments. Okay, well, thank you for joining us today. I hope that you'll join us on March 25th. We're going to dive deeper into these IPDAE matrices. And there we're going to put together the resources that we have and put them into action. And you'll be able to gain a deeper understanding of the electronic matrices and some applicable and potential applications that you can use. Until then, I wish all of you a great rest of the day, and we'll see you again virtually on March 25th. Thank you, Ron.
Thank you.